Hello, today we're going to be planning out Zen-tangle ideas to use in our larger Zen-tangle project. At the top there's a spot for your name and your class code, so you'd write the number of the grade you're in and the first letter of your teacher's name. Then you'll see we have an array of 12 empty boxes. In each box, you are going to design your own Zen-tangle pattern. But you might be wondering, Ms. Beyerle, what is Zen-tangle? Zen-tangle is a pattern that repeats to fill a closed space. So I have some examples here of different Zen-tangle patterns. Now, our goal in these empty boxes is to invent our own patterns, and you'll most likely be using a pencil of some kind. I'm using a pen here so that it shows up on the camera that I'm recording with so you can see more easily. As I'm thinking of Zen-tangle patterns, I think it's easiest to start with either lines or shapes. So maybe I could try to think of a pattern with straight lines. There are no right or wrong ways to make a Zen-tangle pattern, but it should repeat. So we want to try to make the pattern look like it's filling the whole space. So in some cases, that might mean drawing little parts of the pattern really close to the edges so that it looks like it were to keep going. So in this first box, I did a pattern of alternating vertical and horizontal lines. So I did 3 lines and then they turn. You'll notice my pattern isn't perfect. Art doesn't have to be perfect, but we should try our best. So this is a relatively simple pattern to repeat. Maybe my next one I'll try to make a little bit more complicated, just to make it more interesting. In this next box, maybe I'll try to make a pattern with shapes. I could think of a shape and then think how it could make a pattern. And I could even do it in steps. Maybe I'll start with a pattern that's very simple, but I'll make it look more interesting. So maybe I'm going to make a pattern with squares. So I'm going to start by dividing my shape into squares. And if I had an irregular shape, I could still fill this pattern with it. It just might look a little different when I'm done. So in this case, my squares sort of became rectangles, so I have parts of them right here. That's okay. Then maybe I'll think of something I could do in half of the boxes and something different to do in the other half of the boxes. Maybe half of them I'm going to color in like a checkerboard. And I'm actually going to color in sort of a zigzag way on purpose to add some texture instead of coloring all the way. And then I'm going to do something else in the other boxes. Maybe I'll do sort of a bullseye design with circles. So do one circle and another circle. One of the things about Zen-tangle is that it's supposed to be a little bit relaxing or meditative. So if you can sort of get into drawing the pattern and think about it in steps, how you can make it a little more interesting as you go, that could be one way to relax. So maybe here I'm going to divide my box in half and start drawing a sort of triangle pattern. Right now this one looks a little similar to the one up here, but I'm going to make it different. I'm going to make inside lots of different triangles. These ones are going to follow the shape and point upwards. So are the ones on the bottom for now. And then I'll think of something different for these other spots. Maybe I could make some zigzag lines that go the other way. So then it would go up like that. But I'm going to stop when I get to the edge of my square. This is a great way for us to practice our patterns on a smaller space before we get to a larger shape. I'm realizing now that this pattern is not as interesting as I wanted it to be. So maybe I could try something similar in the next one but make it a little different. Maybe here I'm going to do a pattern based on curving lines. So I'm going to draw a few curving lines and then think about connecting them. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you're going more slowly, it might be easier to be more careful. If you make a mistake, you could see how you could incorporate it. So maybe I'm going to make this border a little thicker and then fill it in. To finish this pattern, maybe I'll add a few dots along the top and the bottom. I'm excited to see the patterns that you come up with your own creativity today.